I'm Eugene DeWitt Kinlow. Thank you for joining this meeting. This is the All 8 Wards and Communications Working Group. And we're having these two committees come together at this time. One, because the next phase of the campaign is going to involve residents from all 8 wards, and it's going to involve communicating to all 8 wards. And you'll hear a few more specific elements as I go through the agenda. But first I wanted to start with the New Columbia Statehood Commission update. Well, we've got Senator Brown here, who is the lone standing member of that committee who's in attendance. And before I give him an opportunity to go in and talk a little bit about what's happened at the conventions from his vantage point, I'd like to go around the room and people, if they could introduce themselves. And we're going to start in this direction.
Nick Nardowitz. I'm with the Office of Federal and Regional Affairs working on statehood matters.
Hi, Desiree Hoffman, Office of Federal and Regional Affairs.
Hi, this is Juan Che, and I'm working with the Office of Senator Paul Strauss.
Hi, I'm Karen Shulgate, and I'm working with Senator Michael D. Brown. Okay, double.
Hi, I'm Connor Wise, and I'm working with the Office of Senator Michael D. Brown.
Hello, I'm Edward Stewart, and just
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And Senator.
I'm Michael Brown. I'm the junior United States Senator for the District of Columbia, and I'm a member. And I'm a member of the Statehood Commission.
Okay, well, thank you. One, just kind of to give an update on what's been happening with the New Columbia Statehood Commission. As you realize, almost 2 months ago, in the month of June, the working groups delivered their recommendations to the New Columbia Statehood Commission. All the working groups created a report, and it went to the New Columbia Statehood Commission. Since then, of course, there have been 2 conventions, the Democratic Convention and the Republican Convention. Members of the Commission and other members of this team have been involved with a couple of those activities to share awareness. On your way in, you probably witnessed a couple of the products that we developed and shared at the convention. There are some M&Ms with a message, add a 51st star, and other messages. Anybody get any of those M&Ms? Please take a few with you. I think that there's still an opportunity to use them in the district to promote statehood. So we've had 2 conventions, and at the conventions, let me just say that we partnered with a creative coalition. We partnered with our shadow delegation. Members of the New Columbia Statehood Commission were there. We've partnered with a DC Vote, and there were a number of products that were developed and created to share interest in statehood, including the M&Ms, the one-pagers, the mugs, the hats, the shirts, a variety of products. In addition to the products, many of our elected officials had an opportunity to engage with regional and national media to talk about this. At the Republican Convention, Mayor Bowser was there, and one of the only Democratic mayors to attend a Republican convention. That was quite interesting, quite hot for the media. They sought her out. She spent the majority of the time that she was there engaged with the media and sharing her story why Washington, D.C. should be the 51st state. So from that vantage point, it was successful. Moving toward the Democratic Convention, very successful as well. Some partners that I forgot to mention, of course, in Philadelphia for the Democratic Convention were the Democratic State Committee, our other elected officials here in Washington, D.C. who are Democratic. The delegates that were selected, there were several statements that were made on the floor and from the D.C. delegation, not just to the rest of the Democrats there, but to the nation, saying we are here in Washington and know that Washington residents deserve to be the 51st state. So I think it was very, very successful for us to get our message out, and that continues moving into the fall. Of course, we're in the month of August, and not a lot is happening, but I just want to let you know that there are things that are happening behind the scenes. and that we'll be working to build additional awareness and to create additional educational products so that people know what's getting ready to happen in the month of November and beyond. So with that, I just want to talk about some of the New Columbia Statehood Commission activities that are in process. What's happened at the DC City Council, and what are some of the next steps. And with that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Nick.
So the biggest thing has been the Constitution. Right here in this room, a little over a month ago, the 5 commissioners agreed to the amended Constitution. That got forwarded on to the DC Council, who passed a referendum resolution that will put the question on the November ballot for the voters. That has now been forwarded to the Board of Elections, who goes through their process to finalize the language and get it on the actual ballot, which will lead to the vote on November 8th. The Commission is also, we're going to be printing up a new version of the Constitution, which will include all of those amendments. That should be printed up sometime in the next couple weeks to be able to hand out new versions, get people educated on the process, and have a product for people to be able to have in their hands to say and understand what this is all about, which is mostly the Constitution. So, yeah, like I said, it comes down to the Board of Elections. That process will be happening over the next couple weeks until they finalize everything, and then it will be November before we know it.
Okay, thanks, Nick. So again, just kind of recap at least one of the points that Nick mentioned. Board of Elections is going to be a very important stop for this process. He mentioned a few weeks, so in the month of September, the Board of Elections will receive documents and work on language for a ballot initiative. And so keep your eyes open. What happens in November is teed up by what happens in the next few weeks in the month of September. Since part of this process is about educating people and talking about the tools that we'll need to educate people moving toward toward November and beyond, I just want to remind people that there is a website out there. I know there's a number of websites, but the New Columbia Statehood Commission has a website, and it's the statehood.dc.gov. And again, that's statehood.dc.gov. That website is in constant development. And the first part of the creation of the New Columbia Statehood Commission for this year, it was used to make sure that people had access to the various constitutions. Many people hadn't seen a constitution. Well, we made sure that both were placed on the website, including the most current version. So we've made sure that that is a tool to educate people about our disenfranchisement and to create some tools, including frequently asked questions, one-pagers, etc. So we're going to continue that process and making sure that this website becomes a tool. And in the last few days, we've made some updates. There is now a countdown button that tells you how many days until November 8th, which is when there will be a ballot referendum on the ballot. It also includes a new resource center, which is the one-pagers, the talking points, calendar items and pieces that direct you to events that are happening. It also, the website also tells you how you can volunteer. Before, it was about how you can learn about the working group activities and how you can attend the constitutional conventions. Well, we made a shift, so now it's about letting people know, well, hey, if you want to volunteer, this is how you can volunteer. We're also going to add some video and some video functionality. There were a lot of people who were interviewed during the conventions. Our elected officials, our party leaders, Democrats and Republicans, and this is an opportunity to want to share with residents of the District of Columbia and beyond that we are just like them in the 50 states. So we'll be sharing that. If there are any other recommendations for the website, let us know. We're very agile and we can make some adjustments on the fly. In addition to the statehood.dc.gov website, there's been another website that's been developed, and it is a resource website. It's developed by the Office of Partnership and Grant Services. It is HTTPS. Well, tell you what, I've got it written down on our agenda, but the short version is dcwebforms.dc.gov/OPGS/donate1. It is a link embedded in the Office of Partnerships and Grant Services website that allows residents to make donations. There's no limit in how small it can be, but on that website you can make a donation up to a maximum amount of $1,000. That website is active and live. We'll be working with that office to create some frequently asked questions that people may have, such as, well, when will this money be used, or who has access to it? Is it the DC government? Is it the new Columbia Statehood Commission? We're going to make sure that that's plain so the residents know how, one, they can make a donation and how those donations will be used. So are there any questions on those items? Okay, great. So again, it's if you have not heard of it, it's because it has not really been advertised. I think there was a serious effort to make sure that there was the right language up on the website. Additionally, as government employees, there are some prohibitions to fundraising on the job, and I think that we're going to be very, very careful about how whether we share information on the website and promote. So we're hoping that it will be people who are citizens, people who are not part of the government, that really do the job to educate people about how they can make a donation. All right, so I wanted to shift into some of the draft plan highlights. On June 9th, working groups met at the University District of Columbia and shared their plans with the commissioners. Now, some of those plans, some of those elements have already been worked on. Maybe not in full or in total, but I think that there are some elements that have already started. So for the all 8 wards, matter of fact, let me just start with communications. Communications worked on a number of draft documents and worked on language that they thought was very sexy, that would be eye-opening to people here in the district and around the country. One of the pieces that they created was the Add a Star concept. And they said, let's create an Add a Star campaign. Hashtag Add a Star. For the M&Ms that we circulated at both conventions, if you look at one of the M&Ms, it's Add a Star. People found favor with that, and I think that we're going to encourage the use of that and encourage to create other ideas, create other concepts and ideas that will, one, push our message out there. Senator, please come up. All right, we've been joined by Senator Paul Strauss, and Senator, we're in the agenda doing kind of a recap of some of the draft plans, but we've gone through introductions, and love for you to be able to do 2 things if you could. One, just introduce yourself, and you really don't need an introduction, but 2, highlight a number of the things that occurred at the conventions that shared our message of statehood nationally and internationally. Okay. Can I get you to do that? It's on.
It's on. All right, well,
That's
thank
it.
you.
Let me make sure. There you go.
Now it's on. Well, thank you very much. It's good to see everyone again. I am Paul Strauss, one of the elected United States Senators for the District of Columbia. It's great to be here. We had a very successful series of events sponsored by 2 subcommittees of the Commission, the Cleveland Subcommittee and the Philadelphia Subcommittee. Let me start off with Cleveland, where we participated in events held during, but not necessarily at, the RNC, one of which was a very successful event that we co-sponsored with our friends in the Creative Coalition that featured some celebrities, Tim Daly from Madam Secretary, Wendy Malick, who was actually given the key to the city of Cleveland by the mayor there and starred in a show called Hot in Cleveland, William Baldwin, and many others. The mayor came out and joined us, and it was really a great event. We had close to 70 people there, despite what some press accounts might have said, and we really reached a lot of folks. Additionally, we had some great outreach during the convention. We had a member of the commission out there probably for every day. I was there for the first couple of days. Senator Brown took over and closed out on the final night. And we had a very special message, which was to remind folks, interestingly enough, that the vice presidential nominee on the Republican ticket had once spoken out very passionately in favor of rights for the District of Columbia. And so we made sure that a statement by Mike Pence, not someone that I'm used to agreeing with on a lot of issues, but we made sure that his words on DC equality were gotten before as many delegates as possible. And it got a good reaction. We got a lot of media attention. And all in all, it was a good presence out there in Cleveland. And then we went on to Philadelphia, where we also had a great luncheon with our friends in the coalition. We had even more celebrities: Ashley Judd, Dan Reed from Veep. Really too many to even name, as well as a lot of great outreach to media and other groups. And it was considered one of the more successful events. And of course, we got our message in the platform. We had speakers actually from the convention stage speaking about statehood and voting rights. So two very, very successful outreach weeks from the members of our committee. And I do want to, he's not here today, but it was one of the first chances I've had to work with him. I really want to single out and thank Patrick Mara, who chaired our Cleveland committee, who really made it a point to make sure that our message was unified, that partisanship didn't get in the way of getting the word out, and I think it, hopefully the next time we have national conventions, we'll be going as citizens of the 51st state. But in the unlikely event that we need to continue those efforts, it was the first time I had attended the other side's convention, or Republican convention, but I think it was a very, very worthwhile effort. And obviously, we had good support, of course, from your office, including the M&Ms and Director Perry and other people who were out there. We really had a strong presence at both conventions and got a lot of attention. So thank you.
Right. Well, thank you, Senator. And when the senator says a lot of attention, he doesn't mean, I think, just one-on-one attention, people recognizing that we were there, but a national attention. We haven't done an analysis of the cumulative effect of being out there with, for example, in the Democratic convention, we had our mayor there, our chairman of the city council, our the head of our party, who's also our at-large council member, our congresswoman, our full delegation. It was a strong team, and so many people were interviewed, and they're interviews that were local, regional, and national. You know, the pictures that are out there, there's some fabulous pictures that were tweeted, and for people who use Instagram and all those other sort of things, a lot of people knew that we were out there. The mayor was in Cleveland only for a short amount of time, but I am still surprised that when we were in places, say the Washington Post kind of mobile headquarters on 4th Street in Cleveland, that most of the media in there says, yes, your mayor was here, and we talked to her, and she told us why she was here, and they put that out. So I think we can check that off as successful. And if you had to look at to see where our working groups and the work that they've done, we had that working group, the Philadelphia and the Cleveland working group, but we've also had the all 8 wards and the communications. In addition to that, we have the 51st state working group. I think that most of the work for the 51st state will occur either at the end of this year or at the beginning of next year as a national campaign really takes hold. But I think that everyone's focus is and or should be on some of the next local pieces, which is the Board of Election, and focusing on the result of that, the Board of Election action, which will lead to a advisory referendum on November 8th. So with that, let me highlight a few things. We are on the agenda. I am really probably in number 4, and I talked about kind of highlighting some of the things that was done through communications, the Add a Star campaign. In the All 8 Wards campaign, I don't know if there's anybody here from that committee, but I can recap a couple things that have been highlighted. One of the elements of that plan highlights making sure that there are ward captains. And I think the structure was to have 3 ward captains, three people for each ward, with one person being a young person. You know, movements, if you don't have young people involved in a movement, you really don't have a movement, do you? So the goal is to make sure that there are young people involved, not just as the worker bees, but as a part of the leadership as well. So the goal is to create a model that has at least 3 coordinators for each ward with a variety of diversity and a young person. The All 8 wards had an idea that they would do a happy hour. And I believe the happy hours can probably start in the next couple of weeks. One recommendation was that there is a place in Washington, D.C. called the 51st State. It's a bar. It's between Foggy Bottom and Georgetown. And that perhaps that would create an opportunity for people to get together to do organizing so that you've had people from all 8 wards come together and engage. So that's a plan. I think that will move forward. Is there anyone who thinks that that's a good idea and something that we could work on? Okay. Happy hours during the month of August and moving forward as ways to engage people and as organizing tools. Would that work? I don't hear anything. I see some head shaking. I'll take that as a yes. All right. And we have been joined by Beverly Perry, Senior Advisor to the Mayor. Ms. Perry, I just went through number 4 in the agenda, talking about just kind of recapping the draft plans. Senator Strauss just kind of recapped the conventions, but you were one of the few people in the room who were at both conventions, and I think maybe this is a good opportunity for you to share as well.
Good opportunity for me to share.
Thank you.
Do I need it? Do I need it for you? Is it on now? No.
You don't appear to be connected to...
Oh yeah. That's a trick right there. You want to pass this one down there?
Okay, oh yeah, I see the red light now. Well, at both conventions, Paul, you were at both, weren't you?
I was at both.
Yeah, of course. So, I'm sure the senator has given you the highlights of both conventions. I think the only thing that I participated in that he may not have was some of the press conferences the mayor was engaged in at the Republican convention. And it was, and we even had the opportunity to meet with Congressman Meadows, the oversight chair of the district committee, and it was interesting, and he was very warm and made sure he introduced us to his wife, and I thought the reception was surprisingly positive at the Republican convention. So we were running around like we had a big sticker on our forehead, DC statehood, and people were like, yes. And the interesting thing about it, both at the Democrat and the Republican convention, we have a heavy lift with education because people from across the country do not understand the plight of DC residents. They just have no appreciation for the fact that we don't have any representation in the Senate or a vote in the House. So that's the education job we have to do. A lot of that is next year, but for this year we have like a 90-day campaign, I think. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. And just to piggyback on that, one of the largest delegations at the Republican convention was the California delegation. I think there were about 550 people there. We attended a breakfast. It was an hour and some change outside of the city. We made sure that we tried to speak to everybody who was there. Everyone who was there received information on DC statehood. And out of that group of 550 people, no one was negative. You know, I mean, when you give them some of the fact patterns that, hey, in Washington, D.C., the first time we were able to vote for president was 1964, and we're just like them. It was a shock. They were like, oh, no, you must have that wrong. So we opened up a lot of eyes, and I think we were able to educate a lot of people, but of course the goal is to do a lot more. So where we are in the agenda is number 5, and it says create a statehood speakers bureau. So what is that? We've got a short timeline to educate a lot of people about our issue here in Washington, D.C. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to schedule trainings for people to come in and to learn how to speak on this issue before their advisory neighborhood commission, their civic association, their church groups, their fraternities, their sororities, their professional groups, and other groups that they're affiliated with. And so part of it begins tonight. We haven't sent a mass email out to the whole group, but we wanted to start with people who were part of the communications and the all 8 wards committee. What I have here is I've got a calendar for September and October, and we're going to start here with people who are part of this group. I think it's reasonable that most people in this room can be a part of that Speakers Bureau. We're going to be recruiting to make sure that we can get within this time next week 51 speakers who are committed to being out throughout the week to share this at their civic and ANCs. Now, this being the month of August, there are not a lot of meetings that are going on this month, but in just the next few weeks, that will ramp up as September approaches. So I'm going to pass this around in this direction. This is September and this is October. Our goal is to make sure that we've got full coverage, that every meeting that's an ANC or civic or citizens association, that we have someone in the room. In fact, we are already, I think, ahead of the curve by sending out an email to ANCs, letting them know that place this issue on their calendar and on their agenda. They may be on vacation, but once they read their emails, we've already put in a request to make sure that this issue is brought up. So our first goal is to make sure that we have at least 51 speakers who are part of this team. So we have a sign-up sheet at the front desk, and one of the columns says indicate whether you want to be on the Speakers Bureau. Also, you can sign up on the calendars that are being circulated right now. Any questions about the Speakers Bureau? Well, let me just say by a sign of hands, is there anyone here who would not be willing to speak? To go out and speak? Okay, that's unanimous. Everyone in this room is willing to go out and to speak to an organization. I think that's great.
You know, the thing that, Eugene, I think the thing that we have to do is a lot of ANCs and civic association will reach out to people they know. So Senator Brown and Senator Paul, I'm tired
Senator
today, may already have some requests. I have a request from one ANC, and it's the one in my neighborhood. They know I'm working on it, so they just requested me because I'm in the neighborhood. So you all might also have some requests. The thing I would like to do, and the thing that we're going to do in my office, we're going to have a huge calendar. And we want to have all of the speaking requests, entered on that calendar, so you can come up to our office and see where speakers are any given day, where the requests have come in. So if you all get requests, I hope you will at least feed them to Robert, and so we can enter them on the same calendar. I think your colleagues on the commission, I want them to be able to see where the interest is.
Excellent. And just as Ms. Perry indicated that she's received speaking requests, I know for a fact that the mayor is scheduled to attend and speak at a number of advisory neighbor commissions during the month of September and October. And if the mayor can do it, we can do it as well. So let's all stretch out and identify where we'd like to speak. And so we're going to send out an email in the next day or so to the full group, the number of people who've attended the working group meetings, the people who were there at the launch at the Lincoln Cottage, the people who attended the constitutional conventions, and a list even beyond that, giving people an opportunity to be a part of this. We said we want to start with 51 because I think that would be that's a good number to start with. But of course, it's my hope that it be larger than that. All right. Any other ideas to help shape a speakers bureau? We're probably going to set our first training probably in the next week with the following week another training. Okay. So number 6 was review timeline, and really the timeline are those activities that are in the calendar. Nick earlier talked a little bit about Board of Elections, where that process may be, but our goal is just to make sure that we are educating people particularly over the month of September and October. In addition to building a speakers bureau of at least 51 speakers, we'll be working to recruit and build out 51 churches as they take ownership of this, the faith community, 51 businesses. We'll be setting up a meeting with the advocacy committee, put in a call earlier, see if we can get a meeting in the next week or so we can start getting 51 businesses on board as well, and other organizations. And with that, I think that is most of what I'd like to communicate this evening, but I think that let's use this as an opportunity to figure out how we can figure out if there are some additional strategies that we can use to build out a citywide speakers bureau that is active 7 days a week. Are there any sources that we should be going to first, early, and often? And let me just answer part of that question earlier. We've already reached out to the Metro Labor Council. They have a monthly meeting of many of their union affiliates to get on their calendar. Why? Because if we can educate many of the union folk who live here in the district, well, it'll translate into hopefully some additional resources and some energy around this issue. So that's one silo. But I think that, of course, in September, students go back to school. That's an opportunity for our colleges. And Senator, you want to talk to what some of our young folk have done and maybe what they can do?
You know what, Mr. Kindle, I would yield the floor for a minute because Cheryl Liu from our Students for DC Statehood Group, president of the Georgetown chapter, is here. And just earlier today, we were talking about some of the activities that they would be having planned. So sorry to put you on the spot, but maybe you could talk about what some of the DC campuses have planned for the coming few months.
What is your name again?
My name is Cheryl Liu. I go to Georgetown. Hold on. Yeah, as the senator said, we were just discussing some of the activities that the DC campuses will be doing. A large part of our focus will be on the welcome weeks and new student orientation when they just come back to school late August, early September. We'll have a lot of new freshmen on campus who are new to the district and don't know about this issue at all. So we'll be tabling for, the different club fairs, targeting a lot of freshmen and obviously returning students, handing out a lot of promotional materials and educating people on the subject, hoping to get them on board for, the November ballot, and hopefully register people in DC. If they aren't registered, encourage them to vote on that issue, and to get involved in our student chapters as well as we continue to do different programming events, bring speakers to campus and things like that. Okay,
excellent. There are a couple people came in who didn't get a chance to introduce themselves. I think everyone else has gone around. If I can get you to introduce yourself, and young man.
Excuse me, Beverly. Hi. Hello, I'm Kishan Putta, and I live in Ward 2, and I'm on the Communications Committee.
I'm Edana Powell, Ward 4, Stand Up for Democracy in DC.
Okay, excellent. Kishan, we went through one of the parts of the agenda highlighted some of the work that occurred in the committees and some of the work that was brought out. So you being a part of the communications committee, we highlighted the Add a Star concept originated in that committee, and I mentioned how we brought that out and pulled that out, and at the conventions it was embedded. We've got M&Ms with that on it. And of course, you created the hashtag concept. Is there anything else you'd like to highlight as a product that we've either used or that would be a great tool in moving forward to educating people in these next couple of months?
One comes to mind, Eugene. Thanks for the introduction. And actually, I'm sorry I'm late. I got hit by another biker today, so now I'm a little more amenable to the crazy bikers of DC complaints. But I'm all right though. A little bit of an elbow. Okay. But I was gonna say one product was I don't think we have it today, but there was a graphical fact sheet that was very pleasing to the eye and very simple about the steps that are involved in this process. And we didn't use it widely, but whenever we used it, we got positive feedback. Now, some of those steps have passed.
This document right here.
Exactly.
And we've used that, and we've printed it, and we've made sure we've shared it. So a number of the concepts that came through the communications committee, we embedded and made sure that we shared throughout the process.
Yeah, it's a complex issue to explain to someone when you don't have much time. So, and most people don't have much time, right? In the general public. So stuff like that we'd like to continue to do.
Right. You guys created two, and actually there was one that we use, I think, more than this one.
Oh.
And this is the 4 steps to statehood,
yes.
right? You created two, and one was a little bit more, I guess. I'm
trying to remember the other one.
It kind of had the line that you would follow to the stops for statehood.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I remember that one. Okay, yeah, we did a lot.
All right. So.
Thanks.
Great. And so I'm just trying to use this as an opportunity to figure out one, how we can build out 51 speakers within the next week. All right. I'd love to have at a minimum 51 members of the Speakers Bureau. We're committed to going out, sharing our message.
So, when we've done, I work for DC Health Link, and the Obamacare campaign here in DC. We tried to do a Speakers Bureau as well. Will we do training?
Yes.
Okay.
And I mentioned we'll probably have a training beginning next week and a training the week after as well.
Yeah, I think that's important because it is complex. I don't fully understand all of it yet myself, and you will get asked if you go out to public meetings. So, okay, good.
Well, so the good thing about a speakers bureau is that people won't go out empty-handed. We already have material that we've developed. We can talk about the process thus far. There are one-pagers that we've created. We've created talking points. And of course, there's a critical calendar, I think, that will move people. There will be something on the ballot, and people should have an opinion about it. And if they want to know, I think the Speakers Bureau will be very instrumental in urging people to move on the information they receive. We, as a part of the government, we know that date is coming, but we realize that movements generally occur and operate outside of the government. So let me just mention, I believe, and I think that there will be an official campaign, statehood campaign, like a campaign for anything else, for council or for mayor, that will operate to kind of organize and synthesize information. And I think you'll be hearing more about that in the next few days, over the next week.
Okay, cool. That's really...
Question, will the speakers just be for DC to speak in DC?
Right now, I would say primarily, I mean, if you get an opportunity to speak outside of Washington, D.C., I think that's good too. I think the focus is to make sure that all the residents of the district know about it. But there are additional opportunities. 2 months ago, the League of Women Voters had their national convention in D.C. If there's an opportunity to go speak to groups as they come to Washington, D.C., we should take advantage of that. So keep your eyes and ears open for the various associations that are here in the district, and for groups as they gather. Okay, that's a good question. All right, so we're looking for 51 speakers. Any other ideas or thoughts on how we build that list out quickly? And again, we'll be sending out an email to everyone on our list, and I'm hoping that we'll have a great response. So if it's bigger than 51, that's fine too.
What about some of these major corporations and developers in DC? Have some of them to be speakers?
The developers and the corporations?
Yeah. They benefit from what goes on in the district, so they should assist us in accomplishing our goal.
Well, Ms. Powell, I think that's a good idea. I think we'll first have to, educate them a little bit. But if there's some names of some people that you think who are in the business community that'd be more amenable, we'd reach out to them.
Well, we did have that one committee that was the business community related. I forget what catchy name we had for them.
Advocacy.
Exactly, right. And there were several people who came to that event at the Federal City Council. We should tap them as well. Now, 51 speakers who have all gone through training. That's quickly. That's ambitious. Will mayoral staff count towards 51 or?
Oh.
Just because it's
I don't think so.
To get them all trained.
I don't think so. But I think the good news is there's so many people, as I look around the table, who've been involved in the movement for a while. Ms. Powell, she doesn't need any training on statehood because she talks each and every day about this issue. Mrs. Stewart, the same. They know the issue, but our goal is to make sure that you've got the most recent information, that you've got the timeline down in tight, and you've got information and material that you can pass on to people so they can be involved, so they can put these dates on their calendar, and so that they can become recruiters of other people. So we're not starting cold. I mean, I think once we reach out to the usual suspects, or what some people will call low-hanging fruit. I mean, even if you had to look at, we went to 2 conventions, there are committees in both parties that have a home for some of our issues. Maybe not so much as the Republican Party, but in the Democratic State Committee, there's a statehood committee. And out of that committee, there are a number of people who know this issue and they own it, and getting them to come out, I don't think will be a problem. There's also a party in this town called the Statehood Green Party. I don't know if there are any Statehood Green members here. But they're not here at this table, but but that's their issue. We need to bring them in and let them be a part of this solution, and they shouldn't have to think that they have to do this all by themselves. So I think that once we let people know that there's an opportunity to add value to the process, and there's a training and there's tools, we're going to make sure that we load tool kits onto the website. And we already have kind of a resource section, but we'll tailor it a little bit more for people to go out. All right. Any other thoughts or ideas on that? And if not, the next agenda item was just the next meeting. But for me, I think the next meeting will be the Speakers Bureau trainings. But let me see. Is there anyone who'd like to be a part of developing what Speakers Bureau training looks like? I mean, I know a number of us in staff, we have who are staffing the new Columbia Statehood Commission. We have some ideas, but I think it'd be good to get some external eyes and ears.
I'm interested. I'm not sure I can commit to it, but I'm interested.
Okay, well, we can probably just do a conference call,
Yeah.
and you share your ideas. You know, there's always a different way. There are different ways that people view how people receive information. You know, sometimes people say, "Hey, this has too many words on it," and sometimes people say, "Well, this doesn't have enough." So, look forward to hearing, you know, a variety of suggestions that can help us create material for a lot of different populations. Okay, so Ed, did I hear you shake your head?
Absolutely.
Okay, and Kitchen, anyone else? Colin, you're looking at me like, is that a yes, Colin?
Sure.
Okay, all right. All right, so that's three. Now, the challenge is that's three men. Ms. Powell? We're gonna be doing Speakers Bureau training. Can we rely on your input as well?
Well, my schedule is sort of
Okay, you're gonna have to volunteer someone else then. Okay.
well, I'm sitting in for Miss
Niece. Okay. All right.
she would be amenable to doing that.
Okay, great. Well, I'll reach out to her because she needs to be a part of this. And of course, Stand Up has been active for a long time. And we know you guys will be out there, but the goal is we're going to do this in organized fashion so that, you know, we know where everybody is. We don't need 10 people showing up one night in Ward 1 at the ANC 1A. We need one person there and somebody else at the other ANC meetings so that we don't fall over ourselves. Okay. With that, if there are any other questions, if there are no questions, I'm going to go ahead and have our commissioners close out.
Thanks. Mike. I want to thank Ms. Stewart and Mr. Punta and Mr. Stewart and Ms. Powell and Mr. Punta for coming. But I want to point out that we had 200 days to accomplish this. We've used approximately 117 of those days already. We're sitting here at a meeting with 3 members of the community. We have a lot of work to do, and it's not getting done. And we need to do something about that. We need to put some money into this project, and we need to push for it. We have 85 days to educate the people of the District of Columbia on what's going to be a very, very complex ballot question. It's going to have 4 parts. I have been invited to speak before several ANCs and several ward committees at this point. Each one of them is full of dissent. The last ANC meeting that Connell and I went to just last week, there were many questions about the Constitution, and I've been invited to another meeting today where I'm supposed to be the voice of the commission to defend the Constitution against several people who are out there who want to trash the whole concept. So look, we got our backs up against the wall.
people. This is not a time to be sitting around talking about having happy hours. This is a time to be deciding how we're going to get 142 precincts covered on election day so people understand what the question is that they have to answer. This is a time for us to decide how we're going to go out in the community and get things on bus placards and on bus shelters and on metro trains that promote the issue of statehood. When statehood was on the ballot the last time, it got 60%. It passed by 60%. That's not a large majority, and the movement was much more active in those days than it is today. The worst thing that we can have happen to us is to go forth in November and not have this thing pass. And it's time for us to get on the good foot and make sure that we're getting this thing done and not sit around talking about how we're going to line up speakers when there's not enough time left. Thanks.
Senator Strauss.
Well, I think we do have a lot of work to do. I'm a little more optimistic. I think we did coming off the outreach efforts that we had in Cleveland and Philly, seeing how the committee worked together, and seeing some of the bipartisan support we're getting from our Republican friends is encouraging. I think I certainly don't want to minimize the work we have to do, but I'm energized by the way the different entities have been working together, and I'm optimistic that we're going to have a good turnout. We're going to have a good result at the polls, and we're going to be able to get it, get this thing done. So, thank you for reconvening us tonight, and August will not be a month off for us. It's going to be a month on, but I look forward to getting it done.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for closing us out.
Thank you.
We'll see you on email.
All right.